Many people believe that healthy eating is a hard undertaking. However, in most cases, the reason why it is hard, it is because there are environmental forces working against your goal of healthy eating. However, if you change your environment to be more conducive to healthy eating will in turn become easier. In this video, I will explain how your environment affects your healthy eating habits and what you can do to change your environment right after this. Hi, I'm Howard of Trinidad Health, where it is believed that health and strength is a choice and not up to chance. Therefore, this channel addresses health, strength, and wellness topics and gives tips and strategies so that you can make the right choice. Our environment can include many things, but it can be grouped into three main categories. The first category, the physical space around us, whether it be our home, our workplace, or outdoor spaces. Two, our relationships and the people who we interact with on a regular basis. And three, our culture and society, depending on where we live. So why is our environment so influential to our goals and choices, especially the goal of healthy eating? What you have to understand is that all of us make many decisions every day. Many of our daily decisions are unconscious and automatic. The decisions we make are powerfully influenced by what is around us, whether we realize it or not. If our environment aligns with our choices and goals, we will find it easier to make the right choice and achieve our goals without much thought, because the right choices will be easy and it will be convenient. On the other hand, if our environment goes against our choices and goals, it will be a constant struggle to make the right choices and achieve our goals, and we will find ourselves frustrated and demoralized. I will even argue that the most motivated amongst us cannot use willpower forever to make the right choices in terms of healthy eating if our environment continuously acts against them. So the choice is ours. We can either beat ourselves up for not making the right choice due to not having enough willpower, or we can just shift our environment to one that does not require so much willpower. Just to show you how the environment is a powerful driving force and indicator of health, let's go to a journey to where I am from, the Twin Island state of Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad and Tobago has one of the highest rates of NCDs in the entire Caribbean, especially when it comes to diabetes, with a prevalence rate of 22% of the population. That's just about 200,000 people. Just to put that into perspective, that's the equivalent of the population of the capital city of the country, which is Port of Spain. The health situation has gotten so dire that the president of the Diabetes Association of Trinidad and Tobago, Mr. Andrew Danu, labeled Trinidad and Tobago a sick nation back in 2019. But how did the country reach to such a poor state of health? I will let Dr. Rohit Doon answer that question. Dr. Doon is a public health official from the Trinidad and Tobago Ministry of Health. He describes the progression of diabetes in Trinidad and Tobago over time, and he alludes to what may be the cause.
Now, you may very well wonder, was it this way all along over the years? In the 60s, the prevalence of diabetes in this country was 3.4%. It's a vast difference, it's almost 6 times as less. And when we travel up to the 80s, 20 years later, the prevalence was 10%. And today, 40 years later, it's 22%. So that's the prevalence of the disease. What about mortality of the disease? A little bit of history too. In the 60s, it was the 7th leading cause of death. So diabetes was pretty rare in the 60s, you know. Growing up then, you never heard about diabetes. You probably heard about every other thing else, strokes and so on. And you wouldn't hear about diabetes. Communicable diseases like COVID and all the other stuff, measles, etc., malaria, they were much more common than these chronic diseases. So the 7th leading cause of death. And today, diabetes is the 2nd leading cause of death. So you will see what the situation. So we have much more risk with COVID being multiplied simply having COVID, and as the population age and you grow older, the presence of chronic diseases, and we're speaking about diabetes today. So diabetes, 2nd leading cause of death, accounting for 17% of total all-cause mortality, all causes. So what are the factors that influence this epidemic that we have, and we'll refer to this as an epidemic also. Epidemics, we do have epidemics in chronic disease, not only infectious diseases. And everyone knows what are the risk factors. We've been speaking about it multiple times over time: unhealthy diets, sedentary lifestyle, high levels of inactivity, alcohol and tobacco. So in other words, just like infectious diseases, I like to think of diabetes as a hand-to-mouth disease because of the very nature of the behavioral risk factors. So over time, we grew up in the 60s in environment of a dietary environment of local fruits and vegetables, starchy roots, particularly blue food. We all understand the healthiest of all starches. And we moved towards an energy-dense diet high in processed foods and beverages, animal source food, added sugars, fats, and salt. So you see, we've changed the way we live, and we have now been operating in an obesogenic environment because some of the biological risk factors, and by the way, it's a serious risk factor for COVID and its complication is overweight and obesity. They share similar risk factors. So diabetes, also overweight and obesity, is a serious risk factor, very, very important risk factor, and which is driven really by the obesogenic environment, the unhealthy diets and habits and behaviors, and high cholesterol and high blood pressure. Those are some of the risk factors there.
Now notice the key phrase that he mentioned: obesogenic environment. Now, an obesogenic environment refers to an environment that helps or contributes to obesity. Obesity in Trinidad and Tobago has been trending upward since the 1990s in both adults and children, and the number of cases of NCDs have followed the trend of obesity on that upward trend. Mr. Andrew Danu had this to say about Trinidad and Tobago's obesogenic environment. I quote, "We simply have too many cheap, convenient, high-calorie foods available to us, and not enough opportunities to expend this excess energy we consume. These items have become so convenient, you can stand in any street, in any city or town in Trinidad and Tobago, spin around at least once, and you're able to see at least one fast food restaurant. We now have an obesogenic environment, giving rise to increasing waistlines and NCDs which develop because of it. One of these fast food restaurants, by the way, has 60 locations throughout the Twin Island state. Yes, 60 outlets. And it's not only the fast food restaurants that contribute to this obesogenic environment. The diet of the population of Trinidad and Tobago is a diet generally high in animal products and processed food and not enough fruit and vegetable consumption. Chicken is the food most consumed by the average Trinidad and Tobago citizen. This report says that the Trinidad and Tobago population eats about 1 million chickens in a week. So therefore, an average Trinidad and Tobago citizen eats about almost equivalent of 1 chicken in a week. And that's just chicken. I haven't mentioned about the other animal products, such as pork, beef, fish, and dairy products. So in short, it's no wonder why Trinidad and Tobago has been labeled a sick nation. The population's poor health has been driven by its dietary environment. Chef AJ, a popular vegan chef and author, when asked what is the most important thing for people who want to lose weight or get healthy, her answer was to the point. You need to have a clean food environment in your house. Remember, if it's in your house, it's in your mouth. So in short, that right there is the key to making healthy eating easy. You change your environment to help you meet your goals. Now, you may not be able to change the dietary environment of your neighborhood or community or country, at least in the short term. But it is much easier to change the dietary environment of your household almost immediately. So in other words, do a kitchen makeover. There are mainly 2 stages in a kitchen makeover. The first stage is keep the unhealthy stuff far away and inconvenient. Ideally, get the unhealthy stuff out of the house. This is important because, and note this, willpower is only required when you have to make a decision, and you don't have to decide on what to eat or not to eat if something which is not supposed to be eaten is not there. And as anyone who has been on a so-called diet will know, willpower or self-control is taxing on the brain and uses up physical and mental resources, thereby making it easier for you to go and eat the unhealthy stuff just out of pure exhaustion. So, in short, get the unhealthy stuff out of the picture. The second stage is keep healthy stuff nearby and convenient. This will help you to have healthier meals at short notice, and it will be convenient. Here are some tips to help you with this. First tip, meal prepping can do wonders because you will have healthy food already prepared to consume. If you work a 40-hour work week, you can use the weekend to make batches of whole or unprocessed food so that you can assemble healthy meals with little time and little effort. Now, if meal prep is not your thing, and you're really crunched for time, consider a local meal delivery service that caters to your needs and desires. 3. Carry your home-cooked meals to work. Eating home-cooked meals at work will reduce the chances of consuming unhealthy foods just out of pure hunger. Now, if you're going out of the house for an extended period of time, eat your healthy food before you leave the house so that you can conduct your affairs with a feeling of satiety as opposed to ravenous hunger, which will make you much more susceptible to having that takeout. So hopefully these tips will help you change your immediate dietary environment. In my experience, changing your immediate dietary environment can reduce the impact of the dietary environment of your community on your personal food consumption. Now, that being said, I also believe that if the community's dietary environment changes, the health of the citizens of the community is affected one way or the other. In my next video, I would show how a province in Finland was able to change its health outcomes of its population just by changing the dietary environment. So, question of the day, in your opinion, is your dietary environment in alignment with your goals of healthy eating? Put your comments in the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. If you found this video helpful, give it a like, share it, and subscribe to this channel to see more videos like this one. So until next time, be safe and be well. And remember, health and wellness are more about choices and less about chances.